Welcome to tonight's meeting, December 9th, pre-meeting for our council meeting. Does anybody first have questions on the agenda? No? Then council reports. Councilor Zadi?
None, but it did occur to me that I'm not sure if we ever took a poll on the request related to the crime study session. Manager, do we need a poll for that? Can we get a poll just to make it?
Tell us what you're looking at.
I don't think we ever took one. I think I requested it, and
I know, but what do you want from it?
Confirmation that we all want to do this.
No. In the crime report, because we just got a report that gave us all the statistics of what is happening. So what more do you want?
I would like a set of recommendations on what we can do as a city from our municipal code to affect crime in the city, the increase of burglaries and various things that we're seeing. What can we do as a city? So the crime report showed the stats, but I think the missing piece now is the recommendations as to what are we actually going to do about it.
So you want the police department to come and tell you what they're going to do, what they're stepping up and doing, or?
Specifically, if there are city code changes that can be made by council, like we did with car thefts.
Go ahead.
I believe burglaries are felonies, so likely written into the district courts, not the municipal court. So in the municipal code, we do have theft up to $1,000, I believe, with a penalty range that is set forth under state law as the maximum allowable penalty range for theft. So we have that in our code now. I don't know if we would be able to necessarily codify anything on burglaries, though, in that I think the jurisdictional limits of our courts are more toward the misdemeanors than would be allowable as far as anything more severe than a misdemeanor.
Dave has a question.
I remember the specific ask, and I know that we got the information. I thought the information was sufficient in terms of information, but I guess my ask isn't necessarily beyond this for them to come before us. I guess I would be more looking to Councilor Zadi's point, if there was anything that the police department, looking at that and hearing our what priorities we want to look at, if there's anything they think that we could do. For me, we've heard a lot about the expired plates, and I know we've increased, I guess, holding that accountable or enforcing that. But is there any other things that the police department would want? And I think was kind of the ask in general that we had. I don't know that we necessarily need a study session, but I'm just wondering, after they looked at the report, if there was anything in the coming year that potentially they might want us to address.
After reading the community survey, I was just thinking the same thing with not necessarily the crime stuff, but what that community survey says for any of the departments, the water department. I mean, all of our core services had different pieces in that community survey. After staff has had time to digest it and whatnot, is there anything that any of them want to come and discuss? But yeah, the report that we got was okay with me. I
just know that we've heard from a lot of businesses now in various areas of the city that crime is rising, and if there is something we can do, what are we going to do about it? I think getting the report is not enough. I think that was good, but what are the next steps? Are there specific policy recommendations that could be changed? Is there something within our code that is hampering the police from maybe more of the enforcement side? I just want to take some action. So if it's not a study session, what does that list look like? Are there recommendations? If there are not, then I guess we don't do anything about what's happening. So that's what I'm trying to get to. What's the next steps policy-wise?
To Councilor Azadi's point, some of the police officers have said that they are worried about liability when it comes to enforcing some of the laws at businesses. So I would like to see what that is and why they're concerned and what we do about it.
Not necessarily with the burglary, but along the same thing. Along enforcement. One of the things we've heard over time is the homelessness, and so the courts have ruled differently than what we were going off of. So I think that is probably an area that I'm interested in touching on. That probably crosses over into the realm of empowering the PD to be able to do their job. And so I feel like that's a conversation that I know I've heard the mayor say council probably needs to have, and I would agree with that. So if we're going to do something, I want to make sure that that's part of the conversation at some point.
May I add to the conversation for clarification? The staff is coming back on the continuum of compassion with respect to homelessness in light of the Supreme Court decision, which has changed the framework for municipalities particularly. So we will come back to City Council with a discussion and possibly a recommended change there with respect to the city and the public property side of negative impacts. So that is coming. I would add that a second thing, beginning in early 2025, I will be having each department head come into City Council to go through what makes up its departmental budget, the services provided, the stress areas and that sort of thing. Those will be building blocks for the 2025 budget process. So that will be the second opportunity. The chief of police will be one of those evenings, and we'll be prioritizing those to happen in Q1 of 2025. So those are the two things that maybe will help with this discussion.
Just one other thought as you're talking, because I think one of the things I heard that unfortunately I didn't get to go with that tour with work when you went and talked to the business owners, but one of the feedback things I heard was that they thought it was useful, some of the things that economic development did in terms of resources in order to make their businesses safer. So I would be interested in the next year as you guys start looking at the budget if that's an area where we can help businesses that maybe don't have the means. And along that same lines, we do the home visits with the PD, and I imagine they do a business visit, but maybe working with the PD and economic development when they go out and do the business walks, because I think one of the things I've heard over time, say, for example, with homelessness, is that the business owners don't understand their rights in terms of, hey, on a business, it's much different than in parkland. And being able to tell them, hey, if you have an issue with somebody being on your property that's not supposed to, what you need to do is call and we'll remove that person if that's what you want. So I feel like there's some educational opportunity that you could probably do between those two departments when it comes to educating the businesses.
Do we still need a poll?
Well, I hear we're going to be having the department heads come. Chief is one of them. I hate making an extra something if these folks are coming to us and we are able to talk to them. So I think you've got the list. Attorney Frankel knows what you're looking for, and I'm sure knowing that Councilor Zadi wants to know about are there any of our municipal guidelines that need to be changed to be stiffer, like we did for car racing and stuff? If you wake up in the middle of the night and think of something, then jot it down and let us know. But is that good enough?
Yeah, and to be clear, that was requested before post-hour business. So there's not a new request. I'm just confirming that it's still happening, that we're going to get this at some point. So I'm good with that. If it's coming back to us and we're going to have the heads of the departments, I guess we can talk about it there, and we'll see this list at some point.
And you can let the chief know what questions were asked here.
Yeah, and I'll follow up directly with the chief with a conversation following tonight about your requests, and then the discussion this evening, make sure that he's fully up to speed with what you're seeking in terms of discussion and input from him. I do meet with the chief every second day, and I do know that the police department is actively investigating and enforcing all property crime issues that are happening and any that are happening happening in the city. And so that's just on behalf of the chief, is assure City Council and our community that is job one for our police department. But we're talking about considering potential legislative changes or others. That's what I'll have a discussion with the chief about.
And I'm sure some of it may be sensitive, and he may not want to disclose some of what they're working on. So whatever he can talk about.
Understood.
Good?
Yep.
Okay. Councillor Hott?
Yep, mine might be just a minute. So on Tuesday, I attended the Westminster Chamber After Hours event and met many of our small business owners. And then on Wednesday, I attended the AC Rep Legislative Preview Breakfast. And there's where I learned that the state is facing a $1 billion deficit, and Representative Byrd said to please not ask for money. She said that because she's on the JBC, if any bill has a fiscal note attached to it without a plan on where that money is going to come from, then it will be a no, just a flat no vote from her. And then on Tuesday, I also attended the Kids First Healthcare Advisory meeting. It's a child health care clinic that's opening soon in historic Westminster. They serve kids between the ages of 0 to 21, and they help families go through the process to receive Medicaid if they qualify. And for those who are not insured, they're based on, or they're charged based on an income-based sliding scale, so no child is turned away for health care. They also have mental health care for kids there as well. And then what I thought was neat was the $25,000 that we approved for the Human Services Committee. They decided to award that full $25,000 on top of the $5,000 they had already approved, for a total of $30,000 to go for the startup costs for the clinic. They had to completely redo the inside of a building to, have like the offices and whatnot, and that cost quite a bit of money. So they got, because they are doing a special project, and we had told Human Services if they wanted to award more for a special project, they could. This was a special project they decided to go with when we approved the $25,000. So I thought that was really neat, that we could help them take part in the great work that they do. Then on Thursday morning, I attended the Westminster Chamber Government Affairs Committee just to give them an update on what's going on in Westminster. I also attended the holiday concert at Covenant Village. It's one of our senior care communities. We listened to the Denver Brass 5 play many of our favorite holiday tunes, and it was really fantastic. And then, of course, on Thursday, we had our telephone town hall. On Friday morning, I attended the CML Policy Committee meeting. I learned at that meeting, I did send an email with the exact wording that was given to me by CML, but I learned that the governor is proposing taking away money that goes to municipalities for specific projects in order to backfill some of the money from the state with their fiscal deficit. And I would like to lobby Representative Byrd, because she's our representative and she's on the JBC, to ask to please not take that money away, especially since we're already told not to ask for money. They shouldn't take away one of our few resources from the state. And then on Friday evening, I attended the hometown Christmas in historic Westminster. It was the 100th anniversary, and many of our residents came, and it was a great time. And then on Saturday, I attended the holiday lighting ceremony at City Hall. That was a lot of fun. Our firefighters had fire pits, talked about fire safety. We had food trucks, marching band, school choir. We got to pass out glasses to our residents that made it look like there were designs on the lights in the tree, and it was just a lot of fun. And the lights around City Hall are really beautiful, and so whoever is in charge of putting them up did a really good job. And then I guess just moving backwards about Representative Byrd, I don't know how you all feel about lobbying Representative Byrd, asking her please not, because this is what the governor proposed to the JBC when he gave his budget, and since we can't ask for any help, I would like to lobby that they don't take away the help that they do have for municipalities.
I'd look to Jody. Will our legislative team be bringing us those kinds of updates, so that I just know things can change? So when we know exactly what he's going to do or not going to do, that our team brings to us what's happening so that as a council we can take a stance at that point. I just know if we do stuff too early, it can change 15 times. So.
Yeah, she did say that if we had any concerns that we could go to her.
If you go to her, you're talking as one person
Well,
because
right.
we have not.
That's
made a
why I was
decision.
bringing it to. I didn't say anything to her. That's why.
No,
I brought
I'm
it to
just
council.
saying until this body has made a decision one way or the other, it's only your voice. So I just want to make that clear to anybody that it's you, not council, that's said this.
Oh yes, I'm asking council for permission to.
And I'm saying we need to have our staff bring us what the wording and everything is so we know what we're saying yes or no to, and at that time we'll take a stance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mayor,
make
Councilor,
sense?
if I could, so I could help with that. Our head of that group is with us tonight, has heard the discussion. I know that our staff and lobbyists are monitoring this, but we will bring something into you in short order so that we can bring you an update, and then if there's anything that we would recommend, we do that at that time. It'll either be that or an update to let you know if it's moving or changing.
Sure.
We'll keep you up to date.
Perfect.
I'm just curious, as that moves along, and if it looks like you know kind of what they're proposing, if we could just know what the specific impact our budget would be, what those dollars are used for, and how much.
Okay.
And then that's the end of my.
Sounds like they're
Okay.
going to cut and make it all roll downhill, right?
Yeah.
Oh, another fun year coming. Thanks. Councilor Carmelia?
Thank you. I also attended the Kids First Healthcare walkthrough with Maker Housing. Councilor Hott gave a great update there, so not much else to add. I will say that it was a great opportunity to walk through that. It's right, I mean, where it's located is in our TOD, area, and it's right there downtown. And I think that this addition is really great for residents. And so, again, what it is, it's offering healthcare services to kids from, infants to 21 years old. A lot of times services for kids end at 18, depending on your health insurance, possibly 26. But anyway, just knowing that that opportunity is there and it opens most likely January 1. I'd love for folks to know that that's available now. So that's really exciting. And then we had a great turnout at the telephone town hall. I'm grateful to all of those who called in. That was a lot of fun. I actually thought that was a fun experience getting to kind of rapid fire answer questions with all of us. So I hope we do some more of those, trying to make our communication as accessible as possible. That's all I have.
Councilor Ireland?
I have a long list. I went to quite a few things this week. So I went to the ribbon cutting in the West Pines with the mayor. It's a behavioral health clinic. It's the only one in the entire state, and it's in our city. And the ones that backed it are Arcadia Health and Intermountain Healthcare. I could tell it's provided some great service as well as some great job creation. It can house 144 patients at a time. They said the average length of time in there is 4 to 5 days, so there's a big turnaround. If someone's really acute, they'll keep them for a month. Also attended, I'm on the humanitarian committee for my church. We're having another food drive with a nativity on the 22nd of December from 6 to 7 at our church is a walk-through nativity and food drive. We just finished up a toy drive. I went to the legislative preview. I listened to Shannon Bird. She said the reason the state is $1 billion in debt is mainly from Medicaid. We are number one in the nation for Medicaid participancy. So that has been a big problem. She says that it's not like the federal government where you cannot balance your budget. You have to balance your budget. We can't just keep taking on debt. So she said that schools will be fully funded, colleges will be fully funded, but other than that, everything's on the table. What else? I attended the election commission, and this shouldn't be a big deal, but I noticed, and I asked Abby, why the Republican canvas board member did not certify the election. She did not certify the election for our city council either last fall. So I called her up today, found out the reason she didn't certify this election this year is she's concerned about the leaking of the passwords for the Dominion machines. She says she could not certify that they had not been touched illegally. She also said that she gets a list of all the people who voted, and it's like 800 pages. And she asked for it after the election. They didn't give it to her till 30 minutes before she was supposed to certify. She has no way of going through that in 30 minutes, 800 pages. So that's why she didn't certify it. The reason why she didn't certify our city council election, because she says that there are ballots that people will vote for 4 candidates and then cross one off because they were only allowed 3. Those ballots from both sides, the Democrats and the Republicans, are supposed to go through those ballots, make duplicates, and fill them out the way that they were intended if one's crossed out. What they did is they just blinked them out and put them through the machine, so they did not count at all. So she thinks that whole election was undercounted and that the results were not correct. They're undercounted. And she says the results would have been different, she thinks, had it been counted correctly. That is a state law. She wanted to spend $50,000 to challenge it, but she didn't have the $50,000. So going forward, I hope we have more transparency, especially with Jefferson County, in the way they have run their elections. It's not okay. And I will, if I have to, raise the $50,000 to make sure our elections are transparent and honest. And just give her 800 pages at 30 minutes to go is not okay with me. And I can see why she did not certify it. And I'm not even a Republican, but I don't like, I like honesty on both sides and whatever party you're from. Anyway, just my soapbox. Anyway, next thing, I went to the Covenant Living concert also. It was great. I wish I could have stayed longer, but I had to teach piano to visit with the residents. They were thrilled that the city council members were there. I attended the phone town hall. I had some complaints about that because on Facebook and YouTube, they could not hear us. So that's not okay. So we have a problem there. I did find out great news about the cell tower at Walmart. My HOA, before I got on city council, we came to the city, we talked to Mr., you know his name?
Dave Kerman?
German, yeah.
Dave Kerman, yeah.
We talked to him about getting a cell tower in our neighborhood because our cell service was so bad. And he told us that we'd get one at Walmart, and then I'd been talking to some at Walmart, and they said no, it wasn't happening because the hospital. Well, my HOA has talked to him again, and it's going through, but they're going to present it to us in January. It's supposed to be 150 feet tall at the Walmart. It should provide enough cell service for everyone up north. So I hope we know other parts of the city that we need to work on this too. And if people out there will reach out to me, we'll see if we can work on that with Mr. German too, wherever else we're not getting service. But the north area should be covered soon, hopefully. That's good news.
Thanks.
Thank you.
The only thing I'd mention is on the telephone town hall, the feedback that I heard, and I had shared with Jody, but just for the group's good, was that and I went back and looked at it, when you looked at it, it had the number to dial in, but if you watched it, it looked like it was because we're all holding our phones, so it looked like a telethon. So it looked like if you call in, one of us will pick up your phone and answer your call. And so I think, and the other thing I heard was, well, we're so used to it being broadcast online that people were sitting there either waiting for it or they thought that it was kind of more of a telethon type thing. So in general, I got good feedback that people liked it, but there were people that missed about half of it because they didn't realize that they had to dial in. So just food for thought.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you. Hey, everybody. I'll keep it short since I was gone, so I didn't get to go to as many things as everybody else. One, Councilor Island, thank you for sharing the election information. That's quite eye-opening. And I don't know what control we have over that, but I'd be interested to understand, if any. And I'm also excited to hear we'll have a cell tower up in the northern area. And I just had one quick question. Sorry, I didn't push the button fast enough earlier on the agenda, and so tiny, but it's in the survey report, there's the demographic information, and it looked like we had a split of 80%. And for the respondents, 80% were renters and 20% were owners. And I don't know if that was flipped or not, but if staff could just take a look at that number so we could just understand, who was responding.
And we can cover that question, Mayor Pro Tem, when we have that item later this evening.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is that it?
Yeah, I don't have much to report being out here in the States.
That was concerning to me too, that we have more renters than owners, 80% renters in single-family homes.
I too went to the West Pines ribbon cutting. It was great. They took us on a tour, and it is a much needed facility, and we are lucky to have it in Westminster, and they're thrilled to be here. All of the staff that's going to be working there was there. It just was a great morning. Hometown Christmas, we had Ron Helbush as the person that lit the tree, and he is one that got us all the water that we use today, and he always, during his 44 years working, said Westminster was like working within Camelot. So I'll never forget that, and he used that Friday night. But the tree lighting here at City Hall, all of the elves, then Parks, Rec, and Library that work on that day and night, you just look at, I know what it takes to do a little yard like me, and it's nothing compared to one tree here. So just big thanks. It looks beautiful. Last night worked with the fire department, Santa, on his fire truck. At least it was not windy, and it was pretty warm. So I'm wondering what it's like out there tonight. It's going to be pretty cold. And then I've heard some comments too on the telephone town hall, so it might not hurt to just be able to do a debrief on that, what worked, what didn't work. Okay, it's 7 o'clock. We're late. tonight's meeting of December 9th, 2024. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to the Westminster City Council meeting of December 9th, 2024. Thank you for joining us. We thank you for coming and would like to remind all in attendance that our meetings are subject to the rules of decorum that are posted inside the chamber doors. These rules are in effect while all meetings are in session, as well as during breaks and transitions between meetings. We want to be sure all feel free and welcome and remind all that there is an expectation that no attendee shall disrupt this meeting and that threats and intimidation are prohibited. No attendee shall engage in audible expressions of support or oppositions for any speaker. Signs and placards are prohibited, and all attendees shall remain seated in the seats provided and not in the aisles, nor shall the doorways be blocked. If you are here to speak during the public comment, please sign up in the lobby. Sign up closes at 7:15. Roll call, please.
Councillor Carmelia.
Present.
Councillor Demott.
Present.
Councillor Azadi.
Here.
Councillor Hott.
Present.
Mayor McNally.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Nurmela.
Here.
Councillor Ireland.
Here. Do we have a motion? Oh, sorry, she's here. I was thinking, I have an empty seat, so I'm thinking she's not here. Sorry, Mary Pro Tem, forgot you were online. Consideration of minutes. Councillor Demott? Do we need a motion for her to be remote?
Yeah, I think it's best because it is limited in council rules, so it's best if we just put it on the record.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. I would move that we allow Mayor Pro Tem Nurmela to participate remotely.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to allow Mayor Pro Tem to be present remotely. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Perfect. Councilor Demott, minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the minutes of the November 25th, 2024 City Council meeting as presented.
Councilor Hott.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of November 25th as approved or as written. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That brings us to public comment. The comment portion of the meeting is an opportunity for the public to communicate with City Council. Each participant will be given no more than 3 minutes on any given topic they choose. Public comment is not intended to be a back and forth discussion. If there is a public hearing scheduled, the item on which you wish to speak, please hold your comments and testify when the public hearing is called. Tonight, there are no public hearings. This evening, the city clerk has informed me that we have received one email by the deadline, which we have been transcribed and posted online in the agenda packet and forwarded directly to City Council. City Clerk, did we have any other things come in?
We did have one voicemail which was not included as part of the record because it was anonymous, and it's against city policy to pass on anonymous communications.
Perfect, thank you. So, who's up first?
The first speaker is Paul Snyder.
Welcome.
Thank you. Paul Snyder, 4367 West 117th Avenue. I want to talk to you about the rodeo market. I sent you all an email last week. Because I only have 3 minutes and this information will probably take longer than that, I'm going to cut to the chase. Spending $3.5 million of taxpayer money on developing the rodeo market to house a private for-profit restaurant is a waste of taxpayer money, and it's irresponsible of you. If you can look me in the eye or any other taxpayer in the eye and justify how you're going to spend $3.5 million for a for-profit restaurant in a city building, I would love to hear that. You might be able to change my perspective, but ultimately I kind of doubt it. What I expect to happen is I expect none of you to respond to me and meet with me to talk about this specific issue because you know there's no grounds for spending taxpayer money on this kind of endeavor. You have the ability in the lease agreement to void it if you don't fund the $3.5 million expenditure to improve this building. So simply don't fund it and the lease terminates. Do not throw good money after bad. So now here's some of the reasons, and I'll probably chew through 2 minutes to tell you. So the funding of a private development is not the role of government. The developers put their money at risk, and if it fails, they lose their money. If you, the city, develop this property, you're putting our taxpayer dollars at risk, and if it fails, you suffer no consequence. The taxpayer suffers the consequence. The city purportedly sought input from the community, and the staff made recommendations. My point on this would be, why is staff making recommendations? You as the city council need to take the lead. You're the leaders in this organization, in this city, and that's your responsibility. How is that survey phrased? Who knows? If you ask me, I bet you I could get my community to tell me or to approve or want to have a restaurant, city-funded restaurant in my neighborhood. That's not the role of government. You're providing discounted rent and no property taxes for this building. In effect, you've picked a winner and a loser. This restaurant that you guys have chosen is now competing with other restaurants in the city who are taxpayers. The city, through their lease agreement, you guys are doing tenant improvements. The city is buying a range, an oven, a fryer. They're paying for fire suppression, new garages. You're paying for exterior doors, new HVAC, new bathrooms. You're not paying for permit fees. You're not paying for any of the development costs. The tenant's cost to improve the facilities capped at $500,000. Anything over that, the city pays for. There's virtually no security deposits. You're paying $7,000 in security deposit. At the end of the day, I have way more issues. I'm out of time. I'm going to be here after City Council. I would love to talk to each and every one of you. And if not that, contact me by my email, and I'm happy to sit down with you, but I think it's a waste of taxpayer dollars. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Canada, Sorensen. Welcome.
Hi. Good evening, City Council. Bringing home a new pet should be a joyous event. Unfortunately for some families, joy turns to heartbreak when their pet falls ill or dies prematurely. These aren't rare occurrences. It's a widespread problem fueled by unethical practices of the pet trade industry. My name is Canada Sorensen. Today I want to address the issue of pet store fraud. Here in Westminster, we had a pet store called Puppies and Stuff that sourced all their animals from puppy mills. Puppies and Stuff had a deadly disease outbreak, forcing them to close their doors. They sold many sick animals to local residents before shutting down. Sadly, this is not unusual. Pet stores nationwide have a well-documented history of selling sick animals coming from commercial breeding mills. In response to pet store fraud, 23 states have implemented a puppy lemon law. These laws guarantee that customers or consumers will be reimbursed for financial losses after purchasing a sick pet. However, these puppy lemon laws do not get to the root of the problem. They don't prevent the sale of sick animals in the first place. Colorado does not have a state puppy lemon law. Without even any legal recourse, Colorado consumers are left powerless to hold pet stores accountable. At the pet store, the sales pitch is deliberately misleading. Store owners assure customers that the pets come from loving homes and local breeders while concealing the harsh reality of animal abuse at mills. Pet stores repeatedly deny any association with puppy mills. They deliberately deceive the customer to make the sale. Pet stores commonly offer false health guarantees at the time of purchase. Too often, when the customer returns to the store with a sick or dying animal, pet stores deny responsibility. They do not pay vet bills and sometimes deny refunds. This leaves families financially burdened and emotionally devastated. Please pass a humane ordinance to ban the sale of dogs, cats, birds, and rabbits to protect local residents from fraud and to prevent cruelty to animals. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Brian Sugoka. Sorry. Welcome.
Good afternoon, afternoon or good evening. I'm Brian Sugioka. I live in Westminster in the Hidden Lake neighborhood. I'm here to speak in support of the same ordinance that the prior speaker spoke about. And specifically, I want to talk a little bit about puppy mills and about the USDA licensing procedure for puppy mills. That's because many pet stores regularly source their animals, dogs, cats, rabbits, and birds, from commercial breeding facilities, which are commonly known as mills. Now, these mills operate under USDA licenses, and there are USDA regulations governing those. I think one of the common misperceptions is that, well, if it's federally regulated, I'm sure they wouldn't allow anything improper to happen. And my hope is that I can educate you all that that unfortunately is not the case, that in fact USDA regulations are inadequate. I'm going to talk specifically about puppies, since those are the most commonly bred and sold animals in this industry. First off, the USDA imposes no limit on the number of animals a breeder can keep. There are commercial mills that house thousands of dogs. Dogs can be confined to wire cages every day of their lives until they are hopefully sold or adopted, with no opportunity to run, play, or simply feel grass beneath their paws. Cages are often stacked, allowing excrement and urine to fall on the animals below. USDA regulations require only 6 inches of space between a dog's body and the cage, which, as you can imagine, is barely enough room for a dog to turn around. Wire flooring is standard, and in fact, solid flooring is not required, which means that puppies in these mills very often have wire flooring between their paws. Dogs can be legally exposed to extreme outdoor temperatures, heat and cold. Breeders can attach 7-day feeders to cages. That means that the dog or puppy is automatically fed for 7 days, which means that they may go that full 7-day period without interacting with anybody, without having any other human interaction or even any sort of at least positive animal-to-animal interaction. They are denied love, socialization, and basic affection. Regular veterinary care is not mandatory, and dogs that have genetic defects, diseases, or injuries can still be bred repeatedly. If a commercial breeder complies with these very minimal USDA requirements, animals can still be kept in merciless conditions, yet still be in compliance with federal law. In fact, it's these lax federal regulations that actually are what basically allow puppy mills of this type to exist in the first place. I am well aware, obviously, that this council is not in a position to change federal law, but certainly you can change local law and take a critical step towards advancing animal welfare by putting an end to puppy mill sales, and that is what I hope you will do. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Adrian Voss. Welcome. Hi. Thank you. Hi, my name is Adrian Voss. I'm a spiritual teacher, author, and advocate for feelings, regardless of form. So I'm here this evening as a woman and mother. I know what it feels like
She would keep tennis balls in her bed until the day she stopped pretending they were her puppies. I still can't leave her alone because she will howl and cry. She has intense separation anxiety. Puppy mill operators breed dogs for quantity, not quality. Females are bred regardless of disease or condition. There are no USDA regulations to stop a breeder from mating a mother with her son, or brother, or sister to achieve a desired look. These careless breeding practices come at a high cost. In pristine pet stores, adorable puppies, kittens, and rabbits are showcased, distanced by many miles from the distressing origins. Why? Because the reality of the mother living in inhumane conditions would horrify customers. Pet stores are very deliberate in their sales strategy, keeping mothers like Kiwi out of sight and out of mind while they suffer in silence and cower in dark corners in the hopes of keeping their children safe. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Sarah Scari. Welcome.
Welcome. Good evening. My name is Sarah Scari, and I live in Westminster. I'm here tonight to discuss the hidden realities of pet store practices and their devastating impact on the well-being of animals. So when you walk into a pet store, it's easy to be captivated by the puppies and kittens. They are so playful, cute, and eager for attention. But behind those enclosures lies a story of neglect that most people never see. Where do all these puppies come from? At puppy mills, hundreds of puppies are loaded into trucks to make long journeys across state lines, spending days inside trucks, often without food or water. They die from illnesses, dehydration, and exposure. Puppy mills factor in these losses when setting prices to maintain their profits. Acceptable inventory losses in the pet trade industry means loss of life. Surviving puppies are delivered to pet stores to be put on display as merchandise. They're confined to enclosures in the store with minimal space to move, play, or explore. Their world becomes nothing more than a small, artificial environment under harsh fluorescent lights. Consider this. There are 168 hours in a week, but many pet stores are closed for an average of 120. This means that for the majority of the week, puppies are left in their cages. They never go outside. This means they don't see the light, they don't see the sun. Puppies and stuff. A pet store that once operated here in Westminster was closed for 132 hours each week, leaving the animals in severe isolation the entire time. During these long hours, puppies were forced to endure the stress of constant confinement. This lack of socialization and stimulation is detrimental to early development, leading to behavioral and emotional problems that can last a lifetime. And what happens to the puppies that aren't sold after sitting in the store for 5 or 6 months? Many are sent back to the puppy mill, where they are destined to become breeding dogs, confined to cages for life and forced to produce litter after litter. These are the standard practices of the commercial pet trade industry. We must take a critical look at where our pets come from and question the hidden costs of allowing the retail sale of pets for profit. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Penelope DeWolf. Welcome.
Welcome. Good evening, City Council. My name is Penelope DeWolf. I'm here tonight to talk to you about a critical and urgent issue, saving lives. Westminster is a city that loves pets. Hundreds of Westminster residents dedicate their money, time, and energy to volunteer, foster, and run rescue organizations. Rescues like the Good Dog Rescue, Almost Home for Cats, Riverdale Animal Shelter, Angel with Paws, and others do amazing and exhausting work to save animal lives and place them into loving homes. But today, our Colorado rescues and shelters are facing a crisis. In 2023, the Denver Animal Shelter experienced its highest intake ever, taking in 7,200 animals, a 92% increase in owner surrenders. Aurora's Animal Shelter saw a 35% increase in surrenders, and the Foothills Animal Shelter saw a 33% increase. This trend isn't just local, it's happening across the nation. Shelters are running at full capacity. According to a nationwide survey by Shelter Animals Count, more than 60% of shelters surveyed report receiving every kind of designer dog. These breeds, once highly sought after, are now being surrendered at unprecedented rates. Breeds like Doodles, Labradors, Retrievers, Boxers, Yorkies, Pugs, and Frenchies are showing up at shelters and rescues. For anyone looking to welcome a new pet into their home, the choices are endless. There's an abundance of animals, every breed, size, and temperament, waiting for adoption. The answer is simple. It's a motto we like to use often. Adopt, don't shop. If just 6% more people chose to adopt instead of purchase, we could end the killing of dogs, cats, and other pets in our nation's shelters. Many are being euthanized simply because shelters have run out of room. We can start tackling this problem right here in Westminster by passing a humane ordinance that will support our hardworking rescue organizations. This legislation can amplify their efforts and save the lives of countless pets. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Cara Thorson. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, counselors. My name is Cara Thorson. 2 out of 3 American households now include at least one pet. We consider these furry and feather companions as cherished members of our families. They bring us joy, comfort, love, and when we lose them, our grief is profound. Tonight, I urge you to support a humane ordinance which reflects our shared values and our deep love for animals. Currently, 8 states, that's California, Oregon, Washington, Illinois, Maine, Maryland, New York, and Vermont, have enacted state laws prohibiting the sale of dogs and cats in pet stores. Some states have included prohibiting the sale of rabbits as well. Nationwide, over 500 cities have enacted similar legislation. And here in Colorado, 19 cities, including Aurora, and most recently Fort Collins, have taken this important step. These cities and states understood the undeniable link between commercial breeding mills and pet stores. They recognize that while profit is vital to our economy, it can never justify the exploitation and abuse of animals. This ordinance that we're proposing is a critical opportunity for Westminster to prevent unethical businesses like Puppies and Stuff from reopening here, and to join the growing movement of cities and states rejecting substandard commercial breeding facilities that produce sick and genetically compromised pets. According to recent data from the Humane Society of the United States, laws like these are working. Over the past decade, the number of breeding dogs trapped in USDA licensed facilities has dropped by approximately 1/3. In 2012, the average puppy mill had 87 breeding dogs. Today, that number has decreased to 57. The industry is shrinking thanks to the power of humane legislation. By passing an ordinance to prohibit the sale of commercially bred dogs, cats, rabbits, and birds, we can make a real difference, advance animal welfare, and ensure that residents can safely obtain pets from humane sources like local reputable breeders, local rescues, and shelters. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker is Tom Lampo. Welcome.
Hello. Hope all is well. My name is Tom Lampo. It's good to be back in front of Westminster. I'm here to lift up Westminster in prayer. Before we pray, I want to read a passage from Luke. We all fill our lives with those things that we most enjoy, and then other things happen in the course of our lives and we become super busy. Case in point, a story from Luke 10:38 through 42. It states, "Now as they were traveling along, Jesus entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him to her home. She had a sister called Mary, who was seated at the Lord's feet, listening to his word. But Martha was distracted with all her preparations. And she came up to him and said, 'Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to do all the serving alone? Then tell her to help me.' But the Lord answered and said to her, 'Martha, Martha, you are worried and bothered about so many things, but only one thing is necessary. For Mary has chosen the good part, which shall not be taken away from her.'" So during this time, maybe busier than other times of the year, don't forget people. That's the good part of our lives. Please join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, in Jesus' name, we invite you here to the city of Westminster. You are always welcome with us. We give you all the praise, glory, and honor due in your name. In all situations, you always have victory. You will never experience defeat. There's nothing that transpires that you don't already know about. In Lamentations 3:37, it states, "Who can speak and have it happen if the Lord has not decreed it?" You rule over all, and all power is yours. Help us rest in knowing that times and situations might be difficult, and we might feel uneasy, but help us know that everything is in your control. Your desires will be accomplished for the good of your kingdom. Things are quiet right now. Time continues to march on. Our nation will be experiencing change, and it will be upon us before we know it. How do we calm our trepidations? In Psalm 46, 1 through 2, your word states, "God is our refuge and strength, and ever-present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear." You're asking us to put a lot of trust in you. Our faith is more like the Israelites when they were backed up against the Red Sea and the Egyptian army was bearing down on them, or Thomas when he doubted your resurrection. Our faith is not where it should be to not have the uncertainty we have. So work with us, grow our faith, take small steps with us, carry us when we feel we can't go on. You are our God and we are your people. In your precious name we pray. Amen. Thank you, and be careful when you drive home. It's a little slick out there.
You too. Thank you. The next speaker is Chris Klein. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, councilors. My name is Chris Klein. I'm actually a volunteer with Animal Rescue the Rockies, and I also am a TNR advocate for community cats. I help a lot of citizens trap and neuter return community cats. I'd like to address the study session from last week regarding the community cat ordinance. I really appreciate your consideration on this to stop the breeding cycle of community cats in a humane manner. There are two things I'd like to ask everyone to consider when making these decisions or reconsider regarding the study session. Please do not prevent this ordinance because you're concerned about accidentally fixing someone's cat. If someone's allowing their unfixed cat to roam the neighborhood, unfixed, unvaccinated, impregnating multiple cats, causing a kitten factory out there, it'd be a community service to have them fixed. They probably don't even care. Unfixed owned cats are the major cause of why we have so many community cat colonies out there. It's horrible. Animal shelters are packed. We have an overpopulation crisis, as mentioned before throughout this public comments. To not allow TNR because of an owned irresponsible cat owner would not be a good thing. I'd also like to ask to consider the feeding ban for community cats and protect the community cat caregivers. Cats aren't just going to automatically disappear. Nuisance behaviors sick easier. Cats, when they're taken care of by caregivers or they're in a much healthier state, it'll do nothing to stop the breeding cycle. And it is also much easier to TNR the cats that are contained in a particular area when people that are caring for them. When you have a cat colony that's been relying on a food source, a caregiver for so long, it could be months, weeks, years, then all of a sudden animal control tells them to stop. They need to stop taking care of those cats. It's cruel, it's wrong. And especially in the middle of winter, something like this happens like that. City of Westminster has a neglect of animals ordinance in section 6.7.13c, where it shall be unlawful to deprive an animal of food, water, protection from weather, or endanger its health, cause it to suffer or die. Well, continuing to support a feeding ban or not allow harboring of community cats is just going to allow animal control to find someone for neglecting a known cat, which is a great thing. But it'll allow them to find a community cat caregiver if they decide not to neglect their community cats that they're taking care of. That, in other words, the ordinance would require everyone to neglect strays. How does this help? It doesn't make sense. It's heartless. I'm honestly surprised anyone would support that. The feeding ban does not decrease community cat populations. It does not improve anything. So I just ask you to reconsider that from what you guys discussed in the study session. I did speak with Foothills. Any cats that are there in a short period of time for SNR is going to save them money compared to sitting there for weeks to be a barn cat. And I know my time's up. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that was the last speaker we had signed up.
Thanks. That brings us to City Manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a brief report this evening. First, I'd like to thank all of our speakers who took the time to attend tonight and provide your input and comments to our City Council. Thank you very much. And secondly, I'd like to echo what one of our speakers said. Please be careful out there. Reports are that the roads are very slippery tonight, and there are a number of traffic accidents already, so please be careful going home after tonight's meeting. Next slide, please. On tonight's agenda, we have 3 items on consent. First of all, we have 3 meetings tonight. Our regular meeting of City Council, which is this one. Our next one is a Westminster Economic Development Authority meeting, and then that will be followed by a post-meeting study session. On the first meeting of the evening, which is this one, we have 3 items on consent agenda. 1 matter of old business, which is the second reading of Councillor's Bill 42. That is to amend the Westminster Municipal Code regarding the Employee Defined Contribution Plan. Next up this evening is our Westminster Economic Development Authority meeting, and that's an authorization for special legal counsel with Murray, Dahl, Beery, and Renaud. That's presented by the City Attorney. And then our final item tonight is the post-meeting study session, which will be an overview of the 2024 community survey. Next slide, please. I have 2 city updates tonight. The first one is regarding our snowplows. They're out there tonight, first laying down anti-icing material and maybe later plowing. I don't think we'll get that much snow, but certainly de-icing. The community has submitted its names for our 2 snowplows this year, and the list is whittled down to 6 finalists, which our community can now vote on. Those final names are Plowabunga, Blizzard of Oz, Sled Zeppelin, Dwight D. Eisenplower, Snow Nix, and Melton John. If you're interested in voting to pick the 2 names of our unnamed snowplows, please cast your vote before December 18th, and that's at www.surveymonkey.com/r/Westy Snowplow 2024. You can also get that link straight off of our website. The 2 winning names will be added to our fleet this winter and join last year's winners, which are Cleopatra and Control Salt Delete. We understand that flattery is the best form of compliments and that other cities around us have actually adopted not only this competition, but some of the names and graphics from our competition. So well done to our community for naming our snowplows. Next slide, please. I also want to provide this update. Santa is here at City Hall this week, starting last night and running through Friday. The Westminster Fire Department brings Santa and the department's antique fire truck here to City Hall. Westminster Rotary supported the event last night and will again do so on Friday night. Events are staffed by volunteers from the Westminster Fire Department, Citizens Academy alumni, and our community. After their visits with Santa, residents are of course welcome to stay and enjoy the City Hall holiday lights, which we lit up on Saturday night. This week, coming up, Tuesday, December 10th, the Planning Commission meeting is canceled, so no Planning Commission meeting this Tuesday. Next meeting will be on Wednesday, here December 11th. That's the Inclusivity Board meeting starting at 6 o'clock, and that's a hybrid meeting right here at City Hall in the City Hall Pikes Peak Conference Room. Also that night, the Youth Advisory Panel, also meeting at 6 o'clock. That's here at City Hall in the Colorado River Room. On Saturday, December 14th, this is an important announcement, is another tree limb recycling event from 8 a.m. till noon at the Brow property, and that's 10001 Alkire Street. So again, that's a free drop-off service for our residents. Please bring your downed limbs at no charge to the tree limb recycling event at the Brow property between 8 and noon this coming Saturday, December 14th. Next slide, please. At our next and last meeting of City Council for 2024, that will be next Monday, December 16th at 6:30 p.m. right here in the City Council chambers. We will have two information-only items, one on short-term rental licensing update. We do get inquiries from our community on how that program is going, so I will be providing an update on that. Also, will be included an update on the citywide fiber network deployments. Getting a lot of questions about this. I can give a teaser that there are three firms that the city has entered into agreements with: Google Fiber, Intrepid, which is also known as T-Mobile, and Metronet. And between those three companies, we've already issued 90 right-of-way permits for installing their new fiber network in the city of Westminster. Next slide, please. You can contact me directly at any time at the City Manager's office, 303-658-2003, or jandrews@westminsterco.gov, and you can follow the city at any one of our 4 social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, X, and Nextdoor. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Any questions for City Manager? Councilor Camelia?
Thank you so much. How difficult would it be to ask our vendors that you just mentioned for that fiber for a map of their planned work? We've had several residents asking, okay, what area are they going to be working on first, et cetera. Is that something we can provide or ask for?
Thank you, Councillor. Great question. That map is being worked on and will be attached in the staff report that I described for next Monday night. That report will get posted this Wednesday night at between 5 and 6 p.m. so folks can access that. And I just want to clarify that those 3 companies, those are private sector companies undertaking their private installations, and the city's working with them on right-of-way permits, but they're not contracted to us. This is something that they're doing to advance their business interests in the city, also provide our residents with the new level of service.
Thank you so much.
I think I've asked this a couple of times, but is there a way so that we know, because there's been much fiber, it seems like every other week some new stuff is going in the ground around us. Is there a way to have the city map overall and different colors for the different companies putting stuff in? I just want to make sure, because we have talked about this maybe a couple years ago now, that we want to make sure there isn't one part of our city being left out with this fiber. And we had made that clear a few years ago, but I've never seen a map that tells us where this fiber is going for each of these entities. And we had a long discussion about it. So I want to not know after the fact that there could be an area not getting fiber versus people that have 6 different choices.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll talk with staff and we will make sure that the information that we have to date is included in this current memo coming up. The idea on this memo is really to provide the information that we have at this point so that at least some of the questions can be answered. And the work, I understand from the firms, is in process. So we'll put into the map what we know that will be included in that package on Wednesday night. And then we'll keep working with them as their business advances in the city to keep that map up to date as their services expand.
Part of the expectation was giving our expectation that they don't just pick the ripe apples off of the tree, that between all of them, we should at least have a couple, 3 choices for everybody in our entire community, not just one for an area or maybe none for an area. So I just want to make sure that doesn't happen. Anything else? Thanks. City Council comments. Councilor Hott?
Yes, I just want to speak to the folks who came in talking about an ordinance to ban the sale of dogs, cats, rabbits, and birds. We have one shop, PetSmart, that sells live animals. There is a Petco just on the other side of Westminster and Arvada. They don't sell any animals, and their business seems to be fine. I would like to actually have us draft an ordinance where we ban the sale of all animals. It's an exploitation of life for profit, and I don't think that's okay, especially when we have so many animals in our animal shelters right now that are overfilled. I have a rescue cockatiel that used to be a breeding bird, and when we first brought her home, she was afraid of humans. Anytime we got near her to feed her, clean her cage, anything, she hissed at us. It took a lot of work to get her to trust us, and even though she's doing a whole lot better now, I got her about 4 years ago. 5 years ago. Yeah, I got her 5 years ago, and even though she's doing a lot better now, there's always going to be behavioral issues, and she's always going to have a certain level of anxiety. And it's because she was away from the other birds in a cage in the back of the store. When they just wanted to breed her, they would bring in a male bird, and she wasn't fed the correct diet. Like, you need to be feeding them healthy food, and she was being fed seed, which is the equivalent of feeding cockatiels like Twinkies. Basically, they need pellets and much healthier food, and actually, fresh vegetables and whatnot. So, I've also I used to have. Of course, I can't think of the name of the bird now, but they need a partner. So I did buy a bird once from the PetSmart to get my finch. One of the finches died, and they need to have a second finch with them. And that finch died like a few days after I was no longer able to say hey. It was like 30 days, and I think he died like 32, 33 days after we got him. And we spent several $100s trying to save him. And I know other people who have bought birds from that particular PetSmart as well who didn't make it as well. So I do think that it goes beyond dogs and cats. Rabbits are an issue, birds are an issue. A lot of people don't realize the type of care that birds and rabbits take. And they see the cute videos on YouTube, and they decide that they want one, but they don't realize that they don't come that way. They come that way through working with them, training them, and building trust with that bird. So I would like to see us draft an ordinance to ban the sale of all animals in Westminster, so no pet shop can open up, and the one store, most of their sale isn't animals. Although I would also like to see, if we do draft an ordinance, that we make sure that they are allowed to bring in animals from the shelter. I have seen that at some pet stores, where instead of selling dogs and cats, they'll bring in kittens or puppies that are from the animal shelters to help them get adopted. And so I would like to see that be allowed, but I just don't agree with the exploitation of life for profit. And that's it.
Councilor Carmelia?
Thank you so much. Thank you to the gentleman who brought up the Rodeo Market restaurant. I appreciate hearing those concerns that were raised, and so just know that I'll follow up with you. And thank you so much for coming to our public comment. And then I also would be interested in having staff come forward with language, if they could look at local jurisdictions with humane pet trade ordinances and bring that language to us for a vote, I think that would be a great idea. I think it's an easy yes for me, to have humane ordinances for our pets. I also grew up with, from a rescue agency mindset, and so I've participated that my whole life, and it'd be good to be able to represent a city that has the right ordinances in place. And then to Chris, who came back with public comment around the TNR for cats and the community cat ordinances, I believe that we're still waiting on language to come back to us at this moment, but just know that I still believe that TNR is the absolute least we can do, and I will work to try to convince council to be able to pass that. I think it's the right thing to do. And let's see, and I already brought up the fiber. So just a special thank you to everyone who came to speak, and to the advocacy group that came to address that pet trade. Thank you for being so organized in your thoughts. It really does help us in our decision making, and we appreciate the time and effort that takes.
Councillor Ireland? Yes, thanks for all those that came out in the snowy weather to be here. I appreciate Paul Snyder's remarks. I was against that project. I'm the only one on council that was, and no one can convince me otherwise. I think it's against the taxpayers' will, and I think that whatever was decided down there was not fully disclosed to the people down there. They may have chose to have better roads, better sewers instead of a brewery. Also, I appreciate those people that came out and educated me about puppy mills and pet stores. I wasn't aware that they were supplied with puppy mills. Anyway, thank you for that. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Mayor Pro Tem, anything?
Yes, I also wanted to thank everybody for coming in. Hopefully staff can also help respond to some of the questions about intent for economic development, and I'm looking forward to hearing just what staff is going to come back with regarding the TNR and the CAT community feeding / TNR study session / ordinance that we discussed the other night. I also appreciate the community members that came in that spoke about the pet sales. I would also be supportive of an ordinance. I would like to better understand the current need and impact for the city. I know that we have 1 or 2 pet stores that do sell some animals, and that includes, I believe, fish and other things, and so I just want to understand the scope of the ordinance, because I imagine the types of conditions and breeding issues that were cited for dogs go and extend into all of the animals that are being sold. So, but I also want to hear from staff the level of impact that they think that would have for our community and the need for addressing that. So, I think that's all I had. Thanks.
Councilor Dumont.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. I didn't mention it in the pre-meeting, but I want to thank staff for the tree lighting on Saturday. It was a great event. There was plenty of people here. It was kind of hard to get in. I'm glad everybody was able to come out and enjoy it, but I know that our staff puts a lot of hard work into that, as well as the police and fire department for being here to make sure everybody stays safe. Additionally, I wanted to thank the Historical Society. They did their hometown Christmas down in Historic Westminster off of 73rd. Also a great event. I know I saw a lot of my colleagues there, as well as City Manager Andrews was there. Another great event. One other quick ask that I'm thinking of for the gentleman who asked about the rodeo market. I do think if staff could connect with the gentleman and at least provide some of the details around the property itself, because I think one thing that people often miss in that circumstance is the fact that the city owned that property, and there were certain things, whether or not a business went in there, that we do have to maintain as the property owner. Agree with whether or not the city bought the property or not. There's also a lot of historic dollars that went into it that kind of led to some of those decisions. I certainly would be happy to talk to you offline as far as how we got there and some of the history of it that I know, but I think that would be useful for staff to give you kind of at least the packet that we saw, and that is public information, so that should be available to you so they can connect you with that. Additionally, thanks to everybody else who came out tonight. If any issue that we're going to bring forward, all I would ask is to make sure that we have staff look at it and how it would actually impact businesses that are already here and what that would actually look like in operation.
That brings us to consent agenda. Do I have a motion for approving items 8A through C? Councilor DeMott?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve consent agenda items 8A through C.
Councilor Hott?
I second.
It's moved and seconded to approve items 8A through C. Is any further discussion? Councilor Azadi?
Yeah, just a couple comments, some happy notes here. I'm happy to see our first ever IGA with Jefferson County the fire agencies of Jefferson County. It's the first time we're doing it for the entire county, and this is a mutual aid agreement. It's great to see. It's critical for our public safety. And the second thing is the Hmong Memorial. So I remember approving this back in '23 for the construction, and I'm happy to vote yes to extend the deadline for them. It seems they need more time for the construction funding to secure the funding. So thank you for even doing that and bringing it here to Westminster, and I'm happy to see that.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilor Carmelia?
Yes.
Councilor DeMott?
Yes.
Councilor Azadi?
Yes.
Councilor Hott?
Yes.
Mayor McNally?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Nurmela?
Yes.
And Councilor Ireland?
Yes.
The motion passes on a 7-0 vote.
That brings us to Councilor's Bill 42. Councilor DeMott?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to pass Councilor Bill number 42 on second reading to amend Title 14 of the Westminster Municipal Code related to Employee 401A Defined Contribution Plan.
Councilor Hott?
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to pass Councilor's Bill number 42. Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilor DeMott?
Yes.
Councilor Azadi?
Yes.
Councilor Hott?
Yes.
Mayor McNally?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Nurmela?
Yes.
Councilor Ireland?
No.
And Councilor Carmelia?
Yes.
The motion passes on a 6-1 vote.
It is 7:55 and the City Council meeting is adjourned, and we will now reconvene as the WIDA Board. Incorporating the roll call from our previous meeting, is there a motion for the minutes of November 25th? Councilor DeMott?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to approve the minutes of the November 25th, 2024 meeting as presented.
Board Member Hott?
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of November 25th. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That brings us to new business, item 3A. Councilor DeMott? I'm sorry, Board Member DeMott?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to authorize the Executive Director to enter into an agreement with Murray, Dow, Barry, and Renaud LLP for the work related to the Downtown Westminster project and general urban renewal and eminent domain matters in the amount not to exceed $150,000.
Board Member Hott?
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve item 3A1 on the Westminster Economic Development Authority meeting. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Ireland?
So what happened to Laramie Associates? Is this taking place of them, or is it a different thing, or what?
Thank you for the question, Board Member Ireland. Dave Frankel, Authority Attorney, and Mr. Murray is an expert in urban renewal law, and he's always been the outside counsel that we have looked to for WIDA's support, and his services differ from Laramie Company's services, which were more real estate brokerage and consulting services. So this is a separate agreement. So Mr. Murray's contract is for legal services on urban renewal.
So what exactly do we need him for? Because Laramie Associates, I haven't seen them bring forth anything this entire year, and we've been paying for them.
Well, I think Mr. Murray's very helpful in negotiating and drafting, and most recently, he's been very involved in bringing forward and facilitating a proposal that would bring affordable senior housing to the downtown Westminster project, and he has been involved in basically the contracts and negotiation on all of the projects that you see in downtown Westminster. So that's, I believe that's the next one in the queue. More recent ones have included the townhomes, along 92nd, the townhomes along Westminster Boulevard, the condominiums that I think are breaking ground along Westminster Boulevard, and basically all the other projects that you see there. But yeah, he's been involved in downtown Westminster now for, I believe, about 20 years.
Okay, thank you.
Roll call, please. Board Member Carmelia.
Yes.
Board Member Demott.
Yes.
Board Member Azadi.
Yes.
Board Member Hott.
Yes.
Chairperson McNally.
Yes.
Vice Chair Nurmela.
Yes.
And Board Member Ireland.
Yes.
The motion passes on a 7-0 vote.
It is 7:59, and the WIDA meeting is adjourned, and the City Council has one post-meeting presentation that we'll go and visit.
Pro Tem, just stay on this link. We're just waiting for everybody to file in.
I think even Brighton might. Welcome to the post meeting, and we have a presentation and overview of the 2024 Westminster Community Survey. Just a reminder that City Council never saw this. We had big discussion last February or March about it going out sight unseen to us, so it was nice to finally see what we asked.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Jody. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Councilors. I'm Andy Ladd, the city's communications manager. It is my pleasure to present Council with the 2024 Biennial Community Survey. Every 2 years, the city conducts a community survey to assess resident satisfaction with the city's services and gather opinions on specific policy questions. The same questions are asked every 2 years and are intended to help inform City Council and city staff's decision-making by collecting trend data about the city, the quality of city services, gauge awareness of the city's communications channels, and gather opinions on certain policies or proposed policy changes. The survey is distributed to over 6,000 randomly selected Westminster residents, and all responses are completely confidential. I wanted to take a break here and address Mayor Pro Tem's question. There was a typo. She spotted it on page 37. 80% of respondents are homeowners, not renters. To ensure an unbiased and transparent process, the city hires an independent external firm to design the survey and ensure its scientific validity. Tonight, I'm pleased to introduce Mr. Derek Harvey from the ETC Institute. With expertise in survey design, research, stakeholder engagement, he has worked on diverse projects in parks and recreation, community planning, and business development. Before joining ETC, Mr. Harvey delivered strategic insights to Fortune 500 companies. I hope you find tonight's presentation helpful and informative, and we welcome your questions at the end of the presentation. Staff will use tonight's conversation to inform and improve the 2026 community survey. With that, I would like to welcome Mr. Harvey. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Andy, and thank you guys for welcoming me here. It does look like a Christmas wonderland out front. That's fantastic. It was great. My name is Derek Harvey. I'm from ETC Institute. This slide is just an overview of ETC. We've been in business for more than 40 years. We were founded in 1983. Really, for about the last 30 years, we've been focused on community surveys for local governments, and that's where we've maintained that focus for about the last 20 years as well. The things we're going to talk about today are the perceptions and ratings of Westminster, the major city services, public safety services, maintenance services, code enforcement, and then issues in Westminster that your residents are seeing. And then at the end, we will take questions. Like Andy said, the purpose of the survey was to assess city programs and services, to gather input from residents so leaders can set priorities, and we can identify areas for improvement for the community. The survey was administered by mail. We sent a survey out to everybody by mail. They got it. It had a cover letter that explained the reasoning for it. On that cover letter, it had an online link with the QR code. They could take it there. They could take the survey, fill it out. We sent a pre-postage envelope with it, put it back in the mailbox. It came back to our office. The sample was designed to ensure results are statistically valid and representative. We had 905 completed surveys. Our margin of error was 3.2% at the 95% confidence level, and we had at least 300 surveys collected from each of your school districts. This is the big slide here that I think is the main takeaway from this. The number on the right, 83% of your respondents rated Westminster as an excellent or good place to live. 76% are very satisfied or satisfied with the overall quality of life in Westminster. And then plus 34 points, the difference between the national average that ETS Institute gives and Westminster's ratings as a place to live. You guys are leading the way in this area, and I want to make sure that that is pointed out on this slide. What to know? Overall satisfaction with major services is strong. Your top performing areas were park and recreation facilities and programs, libraries, and then emergency services was also one of the top ones. Perceptions of the city remain high when it comes to benchmarking. When compared to our mountain regional average and our national average for core services, Westminster is performing above the regional and national average in almost all the areas assessed. And then our opportunities for improvement, ETC designed a survey so that we could put all the answers into our important satisfaction rating. With that, we are able to identify the opportunities for improvement, traffic flow, street maintenance, code enforcement related to property upkeep, and increasing public safety efforts were the highlighted ones that came to the top. If you don't remember anything about this presentation after I leave, this is the key slide to remember, especially that top number of 83%. The first area we're going to jump into is perceptions. As you can see, there's a lot of dark blue and light blue on the screen, and that indicates Westminster received ratings above 50% in all these areas assessed. The top one being overall quality of life in the city. And then overall quality of your neighborhood, and then feeling of safety, image or reputation, and appearance are followed by that. And then you still received over 50% satisfaction with the overall value that you receive for your city tax dollars and fees, which is very good compared to other communities that I have seen. And we'll get into that when we look at some of our benchmarking here in a second. Trends for perceptions. As you can see, pre-COVID, your trends were very high, and then they dipped during COVID times. That was not uncommon. We've seen this nationally in almost every community we've done. We're actually working on a national average to show this and work our way on it. The interesting thing about Westminster is you're starting to see a rebound in those ratings for each one of these areas. It's starting to come back up, And I would expect in 2 years that these numbers would continue to improve with the ratings that you've got throughout the survey. When we look at benchmarking, as I said, Westminster is leading the way in several of the areas assessed. Though some of the areas may have rated lower than expected, when we put it in the context of benchmarking with a regional average and U.S. average, you can see that you're either leading the way in these areas or you're right there with the regional and national average. This will be a common theme as we go through the survey in each section, so if I say it over and over again, just let me know. Overall ratings for the city, this is the big one with your benchmarking. As a place to live was plus 34 points higher than the regional national average. As you guys can see, you're clearly leading the way in this area, and your residents are happy to live here, which is a great thing. When I go to the next slide, as a place to live and as a place to raise children are always the two big areas that I look at in each survey that we conduct. If these areas are high, typically the rest of the survey follows in that same area. If this area is lower, we're going to have some issues throughout the survey that we need to dive deeper into. So, and then the same thing with this, you guys receive ratings above 50% in all these areas assessed, which is very good. When we look at the trends, we can also still see that COVID trend of the numbers drop down. The two at the bottom have started to see that reversal, which I would expect to come back up as well. The top two have plateaued for now, but I would expect them to stay the same or keep increasing back to those pre-COVID numbers as well, since that's what we've seen throughout your survey. The next area that we looked at was your major city services. More than half of your respondents were satisfied with 10 out of the 12 areas assessed. Those 10 areas received ratings above 50%, which is great. The bottom areas were quality of municipal court services, which was still at 52%, and then flow of traffic on city streets and enforcement of city codes and ordinances. Westminster is not alone that these areas are also the bottom in other communities as well, especially the enforcement of city codes and ordinances. Everybody knows a neighbor that keeps their grass a little too long, or there's a sign they don't like and they want it taken down, and it's more personal than the whole community there when we're looking at that. When we look at the trends here as well, the COVID trend is still there. The one I really wanted to point out was flow of traffic on city streets. That one has seen an increase since 2020, which is very good, and if it keeps coming up, I would hope to see it get above 50% on your next survey as well. Enforcement of city codes and ordinances is about where you were in 2020, but it has rebounded since 2022, and I would expect it to keep coming up as well. When we look at benchmarking, this is really where Westminster is leading the way in several of these areas assessed. You can see at the top there, your bar chart line is well in front of the regional and national averages. As I said, look at the flow of traffic on city streets, enforcement of city and codes and ordinances. We're the lowest items on your survey, but when we put it in the context of benchmarking with the regional and national averages, you guys are right there with the regional and national averages and even above it in some areas. Now, the way we designed the survey is we asked overall satisfaction first, so we asked them about all these services. Hey, are you satisfied with these? Please give your answer. The next question asked them to rank the top 3 or 4. Which ones are the most important for you? So using this with the most importance percentage and the satisfaction percentage, we were able to do our ETC important satisfaction rating, which gives us a priority order of areas that residents are looking for an improvement. Your top areas were overall maintenance of city streets and sidewalks, quality of police, fire, and ambulance services, enforcement of city code and ordinances, flow of traffic, efforts to ensure the community is prepared for emergencies and disasters. I'm going to pause real quick. As you can see, two of the bottom ones on the overall satisfaction, enforcement of city codes and ordinances, and overall flow of traffic on city streets did jump into that high priority thing, as expected with the low satisfaction percentage, and they received I would say, more significant of the importance rating. The one I wanted to point out was your municipal court services. As you can remember, it was one of your bottom three, but as you can see on here, it's at the very bottom of this important satisfaction rating in priority order, because as you can see, when people rated most important percentage, only 2% of your residents said it would be the most important item. So it lacks satisfaction, but it's not that important to your residents if your overall municipal court services are top tier or excellent. The one I did want to point out was overall quality of water, sewer, and services. The important satisfaction rating, it's high up there at 0.0954. If that satisfaction rating drops a little bit, it could jump up into the high priority ratings, as well as the efforts to ensure your community is prepared for emergency disasters. If that satisfaction rating goes up, it'll drop out of there as well. So those are areas to assess, evaluate, maybe make some changes, but as of right now, they're kind of on the border there, and I would focus on the top four there. When we looked at public safety services, we asked the same questions just with public safety. Same thing, more than half of the respondents were satisfied in 7 out of the 10 areas assessed. Fire services, how quickly fire personnel respond to emergencies, and then ambulance, and how quickly and overall quality were your top rated items. Your lowest areas were visibility of police in retail areas, enforcement of traffic laws, and visibility of police in neighborhoods. These three always come to the bottom in this. I put the visibility of police in neighborhoods and the enforcement of local traffic laws kind of in the same category, because people always think people are speeding down their roads and they want the traffic laws enforced. And then people always say they want to see a police car going up and down their neighborhood street more often than is really necessary. So that's why those areas drop to the bottom. When we look at your trends, the same thing. Westminster is starting to see an increase for all the services measured, especially from your 2018 results. I think these are still all going to go up. I think the rest of your survey is rebounding, so I would expect these to keep going up as well. When we looked at benchmarking, Westminster is leading the way in several of the areas assessed. The only area that I wanted to point out was below the national average was the visibility of police in neighborhoods. It was 10 points below the national, but when you looked at your regional average, it was only 1 point. So you're doing well with the regional, and the national average is a little higher there. So that would be the area that I would evaluate, but all your other ones, you guys are right there with leading the way in several areas. We did the same thing with priorities for investment. The number one priority was efforts by police in your community to prevent crime. People want to be safe in the community, so that, of course, jumps to the top there. And then the next three are the visibility of police in neighborhoods, enforcement of local traffic laws, and the visibility of police in commercial and retail areas. Like we said before, your overall fire services and emergency medical and ambulance services received high satisfaction scores. So their importance rating wasn't very high, but because their satisfaction scores, it took them to the bottom there. You guys are providing what your residents want in those areas and are expecting. So that's why you're seeing those scores, and probably that most important rating is not as high as the police ones are. When we looked at maintenance and appearance of the city, once again, you guys received satisfaction ratings above 50% in 13 out of the 15 areas assessed. Street signs and traffic signals, snow removal on major streets, and maintenance of public buildings were your top areas. Your lowest areas were traffic flow. We saw that in the major city services as that was a concern, so I expected to see that high or lower here as well. On-street bicycle infrastructure, and then snow removal in neighborhood streets was the other lowest area. For benchmarking in this, you guys are leading the way, again, in several of these areas. The only one that was lagging the national average was snow removal on neighborhood streets. I would point out that the national average can be skewed by this. Some of included in the national average are southern states that don't deal with snow a lot, so this question could be skewed by that as well. And when you look at the regional average, you guys are right there with the regional average. When we looked at the priorities for investment, condition of major city streets was the very high priority item, and then snow removal on neighborhood streets was the second high priority item. You guys probably could have guessed by doing the survey that people want their streets to be in good condition, so that area always comes to the top. And then snow removal, because it got that low satisfaction percentage and its importance rating was the 4th highest, was the 2nd high priority item there as well. Code enforcement. Code enforcement was the one area on the survey that received low satisfaction scores with all the areas assessed. What I want to note on that is you will see the high neutral ratings that each one of these says, 39%, 40%, 30% for the rest of them. When we see that, it indicates that respondents are indifferent towards these areas. They are not very satisfied. They're also not dissatisfied with what you're providing there, and that's what skews these to not being as high as the other areas we assessed. This is where benchmarking comes in handy. Because these areas were the lowest on the surveys, benchmarking helps put into context that you guys are right there with the regional national averages. The one that was below was mowing and cutting of weeds on private property. That was an area maybe to take a look at when we get that. And then because all these areas received low satisfaction numbers, they all received very high priority or high priority items in our important satisfaction rating. Most of the top ones were weeds on private property, trash and debris, and then maintenance of residential property as well. And then the final ones were sign regulations in commercial and business property. The final area was issues in Westminster. We asked your residents to the degree to which the following are a problem in Westminster. The top 3 were high cost of housing, crime, homelessness, and then the 4th one was too much growth. Before you guys put out the survey, if you would have asked me to guess what the results for this question, those would have been my top 4 guesses. These are areas that I've seen nationally, have all come to the top in the communities we've seen, especially high cost of housing. It's been in the news a lot. Crime's been in the news a lot. Homelessness has been in the news a lot. So those are areas that I would expect to be up there, but also areas that your residents are concerned about. So it should be looked into as well to see if there's anything council or the city can do to help out in those areas. When we looked at the trends, housing, crime, homelessness, and taxes are the issues that have increased the most over the past 4 years. No surprise there. Since COVID, everything's gotten more expensive. Seems like homelessness and crime are up and taxes have gone up as well. So those are trends that we would expect to see. So this is a good chart to keep in handy to track which things are going up, which things are coming down, and just to keep in mind that trends are a good thing to count over time and just see where you guys are going, and if anything you guys are doing are making an impact. Thank you guys for your time. If you have any questions, I'll take them now. Like Andy said, there was a mistake on that report you reviewed earlier. I caught that while I was reviewing it and made the change. I just hadn't sent the new report over before the presentation. Any questions?
Mayor Pro Tem, do you have any?
Not for the speaker. Thank you.
Councilor Azadi?
I just have a question related to the scope of your regional. What's included in that scope of Mountain Region?
Yeah, so we include states in our regional. So it's Colorado, I had it written down here, Utah, Wyoming, New Mexico, Nevada, and I believe Arizona is thrown in there as well. I'd have to double check that, but I can get that answer back to you. And it is in the report as well. It will say that.
Do you service other municipalities in Colorado?
We do. I can't think of any off my head. I just recently conducted a survey for the Colorado Municipal League. We did a survey for all their members. But we can get you a list of the cities that we've also done. We've also have done in the past where we will take all the cities that we've done in your area or Colorado, and we can create an average off of their ratings and scores and show how you stack up against them as well.
That's where I was leading.
Yeah.
If you have done a bunch around us, I would like to see that.
Yeah, that's something we can definitely look into.
Thanks.
Councilor DeMott?
I don't actually have questions, if it's okay to give some feedback to thoughts to council and staff. A couple things that jumped out to me. and I understand what the speaker was saying in terms of like the court and the library and where they ranged in importance. I see those two things very differently because I think that the importance, if I'm to read that, we're doing really, really good in the libraries. And it's not that important, and I think because people are generally happy with it, so it doesn't jump up. The court is probably because not everybody goes through the court. However, if we have people who've went through the court and they're saying that they've had a bad experience, I think that's a problem that we should probably pay attention to. And I know that part of that could be the facility, but in my mind, I don't want that to get lost in the mix, because I think, to me, it's great to celebrate our successes with this, but it certainly is also very important for us going into the next year to see where we can have improvement. So I also think that the areas around code enforcement is important for us to key in, and really to the pre-meeting discussion, when I look at the numbers on the visibility in policing, I think that that's something certainly that we should focus on, especially in the commercial areas, because it wasn't just residential that rated low. It looked like it was also in the commercial areas, and I do think that there is a correlation between presence of police and people not wanting to break the law, because they're typically not going to go break the law right in front of officers. So that would be an area that I'd like to at least have the chief bring up. So if you could put that on his list. And then the last thing that kind of jumped out to me, and again, some of this we control and some of this we don't, but in terms of the view of Westminster as a good place to retire, I think that's something that I've heard my entire time on council, as far as people being able to age in the city that have spent their whole life here. So I know that's something that we're already looking at as far as senior housing options, but it did jump out to me when I looked through the survey. And lastly, I think this is all the important things. I think we're on track as far as saying core service is the most important thing that we should be focused on, because that came out in the survey, I think. So just my 2 cents about it.
Councilor,
I do have.
Go ahead.
I do have comments overall, like Councilor Jamont, but I can hold until the rest of council goes too.
Councilor Carmelia?
Same. I don't have questions around the survey itself. I'll just give overall feedback, which my train of thought is that it seems to be that the priorities we've been working on all year are, for the most part, spot on. And so I think that that's reassuring, that we're on track and that we can continue to work on them throughout next year. I agree with Councilor Demott. I would like to, talk to the chief and figure out what can we do to help support him, figure out the visibility piece. We talked about it before our meeting, with Councilor Azadi bringing up, okay, what can we do to increase visibility around businesses, and now we're bringing it up again, and it's in the survey results. So I think that seems to be a topic we need to address. And then I'm a little curious about the snow removal. We hear about it, and then we've had, I see the staff responses, around all those neighborhoods maybe aren't covered, but yet it seems that we are a little bit below our averages there. So I'm wondering if the new snow plows will help bring us up to speed, if that's the expectation. But that's just a question to staff. Is that a gap that we had that we are addressing now and we hope to see some change there? Or will we need further additions to our fleet?
These aren't new vehicles, they're replacements. So they're replacement vehicles. They're not additional vehicles being added to the fleet. So the naming is just of the new vehicle, of the replacement vehicles. So we can certainly do some more research if you'd like us to.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's an open-ended question then, is what is our gap? What is it we're not doing? Let's just look at it, right? What can we bring back? And then maybe we can talk about it and try to figure out what we can do. I don't know if there's a solution, but hopefully we can find one.
I think it could be, because we do have a map, and we show the arterials that are number one, and I always look at, I'm a secondary. If my road's not done, I know arterials are horrible, so just stay in the house. But if you're not then a secondary, you don't get plowed unless you have 8 inches or more. Right. And so I think it takes more communication, education as people come and go, living in different places, that we don't plow every street every time it snows. And there's a reason why, money.
And I would also add, based on historic calls coming in, we do receive a lot of calls about the CDOT highways through the city, and residents don't know the difference between a CDOT, like Federal Boulevard. We'll often get snow plowing complaints about Federal, but we can't plow it because it's not our road to plow. And so when we want to drill down on snow plowing ratings, we have to really go out and ask the mayor's question and ask about the which street exactly were you on that you didn't have a satisfactory rating on.
Right.
I would add to what the mayor had said, in addition to the CDOT roads, we will be looking this year at our residential plowing practice. It's time to look at it again in terms of how do we measure it, when do we kick in the service, because there are pros and cons to plowing the residential streets around what happens with the snow there isn't typically as much room for the snow to go to as there is on an arterial road, so it often goes into people's driveways, sidewalks, front home areas, and parked car areas, and so it's always a balance with when we go in there and when we don't. But we are going to look at it again this year because this is coming up more frequently for us.
Okay, that's good to hear, because I was going to ask, can we look at maybe what the cost would be if we address it at 6 inches, or statistically, what's that likelihood, right? And that might improve satisfaction quite a bit, but if the cost is too much, then obviously we're here to make that call. So, okay.
Can I add real quick to what you're saying? The first 2 years, I fought that battle. And I basically, you probably remember Mayor and Jody, constantly I kept asking, well, what can we do? Is the budget enough? What can we do to expand, to change the process? Because that's really what it is. It's the scope of the process. But there wasn't, staff said that they were fine, the budget was fine, and that was the process. And I didn't fight harder, but I'm with you. It would be nice to see what the number actually is to make that change, because that is a big deal every winter. But what they did start doing was, when someone reaches out to you and say, hey, my street needs to be plowed, you can contact staff and they'll go and spot clean. But they did that a lot last time, so that's been helpful.
I see. Well, I bring this up frequently, but it's still on my mind. I mean, we can't solve every problem, and, I still, just today, saw folks out there in their electric wheelchairs trying to get around. So, whatever we can do, it affects a lot of people in one way, right? This is one thing that we as a city do that affects a lot of people in the city for safety and et cetera. So, okay, thank you for looking into that. And then around housing, crime, and homelessness and growth, I just want to cover all 4 of those categories. I feel like we've talked about them all year long, and I think that we will talk about them again come the budget cycle in next year. And so, what I'll just say in regards to that is really just more towards our residents right now, and saying, hey, bring your ideas to us right now, because we're going to go into our discussions February 1, right? And so reach out if you have further ideas on those items, and we will continue to look at them and do the best we can in offering solutions. So,
Councilor Ireland?
A couple of things. So we discussed snow plowing the other night on the town hall call. And I know in my neighborhood in the past, they used to do every street. But as I said, people's sprinkler heads and everything got tore out. So unless you have a real emergency and people can't get out and there's a lot of snow, I see that it's a liability for the city, because you can't tell where the sidewalks are, you can't tell where the people's lawns are when there's that much snow. So that would probably be one of the things that the staff could also talk about, if that's a problem. And that's why we don't do the other streets. I did notice for the code enforcement, there was a lot of it was about mowing and weeds in neighborhoods. Just campaigning a couple times, there is a lot of weeds in our city, because it's almost like keeping a nice yard is becoming a fluent thing. And if you don't have the money, you can't afford the water, you can't afford to xeriscape. And so it's making our neighborhoods look shoddy, basically. And so I can see people getting more upset about mowing the weeds because there's more weeds in our city. We didn't address water rates in this survey, so we don't know how that stands or how people feel about their water rates. I don't know if they consider that a tax or if they consider that something different, and that was not addressed. So that's all I have.
I just want to say thank you for the presentation, and then I don't have much to add for what's already been said, but I just want to echo what Councilor Carmelia said. Based on the top 4 issues, it looks like we've been addressing that over the last year, so that's nice to see. But yeah, no, this was a lot of good information. Thank you.
I didn't see it on the presentation, but reading the entire piece, and I think it was about, do you feel safe? And you targeted, you put in there what downtown Westminster. Why did you not have that an open-ended question so they could put whatever wherever they don't feel safe in the city? Why did you target downtown?
That I did not. None of the questions changed from 2022, and I'm not certain how the questions were developed in 2022.
Yeah, I would guess those questions are based off our benchmarking of standard questions that we use for all cities. So downtown area, downtown Westminster is a benchmarking question, and we usually say, how safe do you feel in your downtown area? So that's what was probably used, and that's what it was benchmarked on. I wasn't at ETC when the survey was designed. Of course, I don't have all the answers. But that is something we could take a look at in the future with a follow-up. It could be a simple open-end question. It could be, what's one area that you felt unsafe in recently, and they could just write it down for us, and then we could give you those comments as well and see if there's anything that sticks out.
Since downtown is growing and 2 years ago didn't have at all as much as is down there right now, but we did, like I said, we didn't see this survey, so I couldn't ask that question. I have to ask it after the fact. So for 2026, for those of you that are going to be here, I would highly suggest we ask if there is a certain area. On the survey we got that retail, they didn't, if there's crime, they don't feel safe. So we know the retail and the pieces they said, but I would never target a special area. I think we need it open-ended so people are free to say where they do or they don't feel safe. That's just my thought. On the tax question, did you define city tax of how much it is, or is it just what they pay in taxes? Because on that tax that they have to pay, schools, it's got special districts, it's got all of those things that are not ours. So again, did we educate and say this is your city tax, this is your property tax, and everything else is somebody else's, but it's put on one tax bill?
Yeah.
I don't know what that question read.
Yeah, it was not, it did not educate, it just said city tax dollars and fees. So that is just asking the resident a plain question, are you satisfied with that? They could be completely wrong in their idea of what their city tax dollars and fees goes to. And usually we see, if that's the case, we would see more dissatisfaction on that score than what you guys saw. But that is an area where we could take a look at the survey in the future. We could define your city tax dollars. We could put a bigger lead into that question where it defines hey, this is what we're talking about when we discuss that. We've done that with other surveys. But for this one, it was just city tax dollars and was depending on the resident to have knowledge or have some idea of what that was.
Because our property tax is next to nothing, and people don't understand that. So it's probably another education tool that we have to keep doing as people come and go, because, and for school districts, I mean, my overall bill, if I just paid city stuff, would be under $100. I pay over $2,500 because of the add-ons.
Yep.
We need to make that connection with people because they're making decisions on those other things that are coming to them in ballot issues that we have no control over, but they do. So just so that people don't lump everybody together. And this is to Jody. I'm assuming you and your department heads and whatnot are going to go over this survey and talk about it, and each area will look at what they need to maybe.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. The department directors will look through and review the survey results, and we will, when we come in department by department, we'll tie our presentations to the survey findings so that it can correlate, just as City Council did tonight about what we've been working on, correlate it to what we'll be continuing to work on in the future. So yes, short answer, yes.
And my parting thing, since I won't be here in 2026, is this comes as soon as you have a draft, it comes to council, so that some of these things could have been caught and double-checked and at least understood instead of after the fact. So just my thoughts. Mayor Pro Tem, you had some questions, and then Councilor DeMont.
Yeah, thank you. I just had some comments as well. I appreciate everybody's thoughts. I have a lot of the same thoughts regarding, that we're addressing some of the issues that have risen to the forefront. And I would say one of the things to be thinking about for us is while we have some satisfaction on the quality of life and a great place to raise a family, if you start to look at our split in terms of demographics and where we're going, the thing that does strike me is that it's not a great place to retire. But you look at, for instance, the people who responded to the survey. A good majority of them have been living here 30 years, 20 years, 15 years. We all know we're going to be aging as a population, especially in our city. And so that to me is more of a red flag, and just for to reinforce what we already know and are thinking about doing with respect to creating a place where people can age in place. So I just wanted to flag that for us, that is a number we should be concerned about. As we start to evolve our surveys, I think we need to be looking at questions that do revolve around our being able to support an aging population and people being able to retire here. And so that could be around understanding what constraints people may have around transportation or access to transportation to rec centers, to the things that they value, to the services and medical areas and food, et cetera. That's just going to be something that's more acute. And to Councilor Ireland's point of, did we address water rates? I think what's really starting to strike me is housing's an issue, the taxes are an issue, the cost of services like water are an issue, and it goes back to the affordability of living here. Not everything can we control, right? But just something for us to understand and how that impacts some of the other things like code enforcement. We look at, well, what are the most dissatisfying issues right now is on private property. And again, that goes towards people not being able to maintain their homes in the way that they would like to. And that's going to continue to go down if we continue to have people who are struggling with the affordability of living here. And so I don't anticipate that going up, but we can be doing something in terms of having staff look at programs that could help people with maintaining, just like we have the snow busters. Is there something where we're looking at small assistance for improving homes, or the lawn busters, or whatever we need to help people who are aging, who may not even if it's not financial, it may just be physical. So small things can potentially make some progress for us. And I think, I agree with the mayor regarding the snow plowing. We would all love to have our neighborhood streets plowed, but there's just so much that we can accomplish financially and just feasibly. I would say another thing that did strike me was certainly in terms of the issues that came up, the traffic safety and our road conditions that combined along with crime and speeding. We all kind of know about the latter, but traffic safety is definitely a concern for us. And hopefully we can continue. Maybe that means that we need to have more of a focus on like a traffic safety plan. I always want to call it net zero, and that's why I'm sitting here spacing. It's the other Vision Zero. Thank you, whoever said that. And what was the other thing? One thing that I struggle with a bit is when we have a line item in there that says too much growth. It just seems kind of ambiguous to me, and so I'd love to be able to dial into that a little bit more and understanding, is that just population? Is it just the scale of the development, or just kind of, if we can in our next round of this get a little more detailed on that, so we actually know what the heck it is, because we're actually not growing as a community right now population wise, so not significantly, and certainly I think we went down in population the last couple of years. So anyhow, those are my thoughts. Thanks.
Councilor DeMott.
I was trying to beat her to looking at this. I'm trying to look at the questions from 2022 because I don't recall that being this specific. And I thought in the past we had kind of a heat map that showed us certain problem areas. And I know that I think, did we start using this group in 2022? We used somebody else prior. So I don't know if it was when we started using this group or before we did have a heat map, because I had a similar question about sometime we were asking some form of question about cost of rates. I don't know that it was specifically, are you happy with your water rates? I think it was more cost to service versus service provided. But there was something in the past, and I don't remember specifically dropping it off.
In 2020, that question was inserted as part of I believe it was a section for council's policy priorities, but in 2022, for reasons that I don't know, it fell off. I think we had a conversation about this earlier this year, and we couldn't recall why that fell off.
Yeah, no, I mean, I might have been on the short end of that, because I think it's an important question to ask, just because it helps us kind of gauge where we're at. The other thing I wanted to ask staff on the snowplow stuff, just to make sure that I'm not mistaken. Depending on the snowfall too, sometimes in the past I thought that if it looks like we have the resources and it's not necessarily a hard fast rule, I guess is my question with the inches, right? It's more of this is kind of the general for sure we will, versus if it seems like it's a bad snowstorm that's going to last and we have cleared the feeder roads, then we move on to the neighborhoods potentially. Is that accurate?
Thank you, Councillor. I think there is a relativity assessment made. So if it's the last day of a snowfall and then it's going to be followed by a very warming period, I think that's part of the judgment call. That is part of what we'll be looking at when I talk about having a look at our snow plowing practices this year. Just what are the factors that are considered before we go into a residential street? And it isn't just the residential streets; it'll also be the same for arterials. If it's known that that's the last snow and then the warming period is starting, that will factor into the cleanup efforts. But we'll get back to you, the City Council, with those answers.
Cool. Thank you. That's it.
Councilor Zari?
I had a question related to the comparison year over year how much leeway do we actually have to change questions if there won't be a, if you want the longitudinal trend, how would that be effective if we insert a bunch of new questions or change questions? I bet that messes up all the stats.
It does. Now, we could get more specific in some of those questions. Some of those questions are very generic. We could add more detail. So when we're talking about major city streets, we could add parentheses afterwards. We could say the streets that you guys consider your major city streets, so that would give us more information. You guys are talking a lot about getting more specific into the questions, and that's great. It's what I recommend. Typically, with these surveys, and we should keep this in mind for 2026, is we need to keep the baseline stuff, major city services, public safety, utilities, but then there should be about 4 to 5 questions at the end that change every 4 or 2 years we do the survey. And that's to answer these questions that you had from the last survey or any questions, and those are where we can get more specific into this. But if we do change the question a lot, the trend will fall off. It will start a new trend. It's just a case by case, just depending on how much we add or take out of the question.
So those 4 or 5 questions at the end, trend doesn't matter, that's more spot?
That would be more spot. That's the way I would recommend designing the survey, so that each time we go in there, we have the top would be the same 15 questions, and then the last 5 would be those questions that we change out every year. We could keep them as well if there's still an issue or something we want to know about, but that would give us that leeway to customize the survey so we could get those answers for you guys.
Okay, thanks.
Sometimes there's a burning issue that's happening, and we were able to put those 1 or 2 questions in. That's the reason I was not happy we didn't see this at the beginning. Okay, thank you so very much.
Yeah,
Safe
thank you
travels
guys.
home to everybody.
You saw the road stats. It's very icy.
Yes.
So be careful.
Doing the icing and
Assessing the roads is
Got it. GIS map.
We're all going to go test our
I
own.
saw that in 2022.
We're like, oh, this is
the survey results.
That's right, that's right.
Should be on the way, not this week, next week.
So
I think I had them done by.
talk about snow plowing. So the crews are out hot and heavy right now, laying down de-icing material.
I go on the CDOT road mainly, so hopefully that means something.
We'll give you a Westminster map. You can follow our Westminster road.
I didn't even see.
But they're all out tonight de-icing.
That's fantastic. That's good news.
Follow the crossroads route.